not just my two fingers crossed, but let's cross those fingers, these fingers, let's cross both hands, fingers crossed. Hopefully, it's a better internet connection. Oh, fingers crossed. Can you guys see me okay? Am I clear? Fingers crossed. It worked. Okay, now just waiting for Cassie. Yay. Oh, it looks better. It looks better. Yes, yes. Ooh, I guess I just have to be closer to Wi-Fi. It's doing better now. Oh, I see. I see. Perfect. Whew, whew. So relieving. Whew. Gosh, I hate that. Oh, yes, yes. Fingers crossed. Yes. It's so clear. It's so clear. All of you guys look amazing. I'm so thrilled. Okay, I'm going to go and turn off the comments so that way you guys can see each other better. Okay, okay. Yeah, yeah. Hi. This is the first time meeting you guys. Finally, we've met. Oh, yeah. I mean, we've DM'd. Oh, no, go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah, you guys have been, texting and DMing, but this is the first time you guys have actually met. And the three of you guys don't even know each other, right? No, we don't. Right, right. I mean, really, Kayla, yeah. So I've known Cassie through social media. We've DM'd for about a year, but we have actually never met in person. But Jesse, I want to say I met you a few times. Oh, I don't remember that. Yeah, it wasn't much. Okay, so I am so honored to hold this space with the three of you. Cassie reached out and wanted to do a segment on Wardenbergs. And I was thinking, yes, I wanted to do that because I've heard several different stories. And so I wanted to get you guys together. And so, I can see you guys' connection over messaging and your need for sharing your story. And so I'm very grateful to be here with the three of you. And I want to maybe open up to the introductions and you guys can talk about where you're from. And apparently, there's different types of Wardenbergs. Yeah? Well, actually, we all do have the same type. Oh, okay. You guys do all have the same type. Got it. Okay. Well, maybe later on we can expand on different types of Wardenbergs. But first, I'll go and start with you, Jesse. Hi, my name is Jesse Jones. My pronoun is he, him, and his. I'm wearing a light green shirt that is button up. Background is blue, and I'm a black person with a beard, and my locks are pulled back. I am now living in San Diego, California, and I work for a community college here as the interpreter service coordinator, scheduler. Okay, thank you. Before I pass it over, I want to explain a little bit about myself. I'm wearing a blue shoulder that's a blue shirt that's cold shoulder and off shoulder shirt. I've got like a yellowish wall, and my pronouns is she, her, and hers. Passing it over to Kayla. My name is Kayla. My pronouns is she, her, and hers. I am from Austin, Texas, and I'm wearing a red tank. I've got white in my hair that's contrasting with brown. I've got a gray wall with a calendar in the back, and I've got tattoos. Is that enough? Oh, I love your tattoo. I know it's getting done. I need to sleeve out though. Hi, my name is Cassie. I'm Latina with white long hair, brown olive skin, black long sleeve shirt, and I do have a plant next to me and gray background. My pronouns is her and hers. Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, I'll go ahead and open with what is Wardenbergs and what are the different types of Wardenbergs that they have. Who goes first? Okay, well, great question. Really, there is a national organization that does research. And so our Wardenbergs is part of that discourse, but people assume that there's a large, um, there's a lot out there on Wardenbergs, but there's not. It's just that the appearance is a little bit different. And so what it is, it's a lack of pigment, which means color. And so if you think about like an albinian, a very white person. Now, you can recognize that we have white in our hair. The gray white has grown. Some of them are born with white hair already. Some of that comes out later. And we all do have more broad noses, wide set eyes, and lips. Most of the thing is that we don't have that Cupid's arch on that top lip. It seems to be a little bit more flat. And then the width of your nose, and then also the wide space on your eyes. There could be different colors. There could be where there's no pigment, which is blue eye, and I have one blue eye. Kayla's are so pretty. Yours are too. Thank you. All of us are. And Jesse, your eyes. Woo. So basically, it's just that the appearance is different. There's really no other issues. But now, however, we do have type 4. Now, type 1, 2, 3, and 4. The fourth one is, I'm sorry, there are 4 types. And the fourth one is a little bit more severe with more health issues. Uh, the third is a little bit more limbs and some health issues. The first one is more common. Hearing loss. Oh, another thing is that pigment can be proportional as well. So the melatonin, that can affect missing pigment. So there's no pigment, so that means there could also be melatonin that's missing as well. So if we have cochlea in our ears, like hearing people have a full cochlea, cochleas will look like, it's almost like a snail, okay? So think of a snail shell. It's very beautifully designed if you look it up on Google. So if you see with Wardenbergs, we have some missing organs. And so that is where it's not able to connect that stimulation to the brain for the vibration and the volume. We don't have that. We don't have that simple organs. So that's where the hearing loss comes in. Some people are latent loss because they do have some of it, but then it's some missing. And then some people are deaf at birth, which means they have none of that organ. So mostly just the appearance. This is Kayla. I wanted to add something more on that. So to give you a better picture, I used to major in biology, so I had that science mindset. Now, if you think about your chromosomes, ours is missing some chromosomes, and so that's what's causing that pigmentation, the white hair, it's just not filled in. And so that's why we've got that different pigments of color. And your eyesight, what's really fascinating with that is, if you go for your vision test and you have that, you've got that negative flash, and so you can see what it looks like behind your eyes. And so what I saw is, your normal eye, behind the eye seems to be brown, but when you look behind our eyes, there's pigment in our eyes as well. And it's very interesting. You can see the lines. And so I was like, oh, wow, you still have pigments in the eyes. And so that's why often we do have blue eyes. Sometimes it, can be that half. And so if you don't have it for that, then you might have the brown eyes. So hopefully I explained that clearly. Yes, thank you for expanding on that. Thank you. Now, Wardenbergs is hereditary. Is that right? Yes, it is. Most of the time. Most of the time it is hereditary. In my family, I do have some deaf cousins and some deaf people that, there's some 2 generations. And so it does skip 2, I believe. And then, yes, it skips. And then, so that's how it happens in my family. But most of the time, it is hereditary. This is Kayla. Gosh, I hope it does. I did that blood test and they said I was not a carrier. And I was kind of I was down on that. I asked my mom, and my grandmother obviously had Mordenberg. She had white hair starting in her 30s, full head of hair. Not so much her face or anything, but her hair was very obvious at her 30s. And my mother has a huge hearing family. My mother is the fourth child out of five. And all of them had blue eyes, a little bit wide set, but very mild characteristics. And my mother said, no, nothing on your dad's side as well. And so I was really perplexed. But if you go back in the generations, we have a lot of native, and a lot of them had that white stripe. So I don't know if there is like a mix, or maybe I'm the first person. I'm the first person that has deaf and Wardenbergs. A lot of people think I'm from a deaf family because they always think that Wardenbergs must have deaf people in the family, but that's not always the case. They can have some hearing people with Wardenberg. So that's why I really want to emphasize 92% of hearing people have Wardenberg. I'm sorry, 92% Wardenbergs are hearing and 8% are deaf. And so it's a very small population in such a large C. 92 are hearing, and it's just so spread out, so you can't really tell. I have one story I actually want to tell you. I was telling my partner and told him that I had Wardenbergs, and good enough, I went to the bar, I went to 6th Street, and I told him that there were hearing people that had Mordenbergs. And sure enough, when we went to 6th Street, we saw somebody that was hearing with Wardenbergs, and I was like, see? It was the bartender. My partner was like, oh, wow, okay. It's still in there. It's still hereditary. Another thing people don't realize is that all races can have Mordenberg syndrome. hmm And so I think there's a popular misconception that only white people get Mordenbergs, but that's not true. All ethnicities and races can. So I just want to point that out. Cassie, you wanted to share something? Right, yes. Many more hearing people do have Wardenbergs. One time I saw somebody who was it was very pretty obviously that they had Wardenbergs. They had the white set features, they had the white hair. I mean, it was such a beautiful man. And I was just in awe. I was wanting to meet, somebody that was like me. So I reached out and they're like, no, I don't have it. And so I do wonder if hearing people just don't know. Oh, I wonder if they don't know about the syndrome that they have. I suspect that because the issue of Wardenbergs, is kind of dead. And I think it's because the government has stopped paying out on research to continue the research for Wardenbergs. And I feel like, I think it's because it doesn't really affect our physical health. So why even, consider it? But when I was pregnant, I looked into it and they said that, oh, no, there doesn't need to be a blood test on that. Not only for Down syndrome, not for Wardenberg syndrome. I was like, huh, interesting. It was something I wanted, though. Oh, only the dominant blood has it. So all of the men in my family have the dominant trait, and I do not. But still, it's 50% chance. So fingers crossed. That's interesting. Did you want to add anything, Jesse? Well, my great grandmother had Wardenbergs, had the blue eyes, wide set, looks exactly like me, but is female, deaf, and then passed on to my great aunt, but is hearing, wide set eyes, blue eyes, but hearing. And then my father was hearing, but did not have the blue eyes, but did have the white hair. And then myself, deaf. So it was really odd. It kind of skipped 2 generations. And then finally, I was deaf. So I was born, and my doctor immediately could tell that the facial features were different and suggested that my parents take a test and see if I was deaf or not. And so they said, okay. And then back in that time, it wasn't very common for people to get hearing tests back in that day, back in the early 1980s. It wasn't that common. So they did suggest that I take a hearing test. But they were pretty familiar with the features. And so they went ahead and tested, and sure enough, I failed it. And my parents were like, oh, they're deaf. Okay. And the doctor said, obviously, there's Wardenbergs, but that's fine. They had a cousin who taught at the deaf school, and so luckily they had some knowledge. Wow. My first question for you was, what was it like for you growing up with Wardenbergs? With your features different, what was that moment when you realized, oh, I look different from others? And what was that like for you? I want to add something. So, it really just depends on the doctor's knowledge at birth because some doctors are not familiar with it. One doctor came up to me was very well educated and already knew about Wardenbergs. But my doctor, um, I was from a small town, and so when I was born, they automatically went to my mom and said, "Oh, this they're gonna be deaf blind," and my mom was in tears. She was distraught. And they're like, "Oh my God, she's gonna be deaf blind. What resources do I need? Oh my goodness!" And so that whole week went by, and I mean, there was plenty. And so, they got a second opinion, and they went to San Antonio to, because it's a larger town. So to get, it's one of the four large cities in Austin, I mean, sorry, in Texas, and would be more well educated. And they said, no, 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 just deaf. And my mom was like, okay, that's fine, that's fine. She was so relieved. That's fine, she'll be deaf. And that's kind of where it went from there. Yeah, there's different knowledges with that. So, what was it like growing up with Mordenbergs? I imagine there were some difficulties. You did share some of your stories about being bullied. And so, trigger warning, we will discuss some bullying information now. This is Jesse. I think for me, I have blue eyes, and which is not common for black people to have blue eyes. And so it was a little bit more distinguishable with me that I was different than others. My family, many of them were born with white hair, but they were hearing, so it was not that big of a deal. Their eyes were a little bit wide set, but not the blue eyes. They were like, why do you have blue eyes? And then also being deaf, I had that double being different. And so growing up, I was already obviously different from my classmates because none of them had blue eyes. And so, okay, I came to that realization. They were like, well, why do you have blue eyes? And I was like, I don't know. Why are you asking me? I don't know why I have blue eyes. To be honest, I really don't. Because at that time, I didn't know I had Mordenbergs. I couldn't really explain why I had the blue eyes. I was just born like that. And so, obviously they're like, something, was it the devil? And they're like, what? The devil? Yeah, they called me, a devil child. And I was like, no, that's more like an angel. I think an angel would be more fitting. But I was so innocent, and I was like, what? And it just persisted. They kept calling me a devil because I had blue eyes. I mean, if I had red eyes, maybe, but they were like, I don't know. I was just so different. Something was wrong with you. Something's wrong with you. And I really struggled with that a lot. So I'm wondering, were you at the deaf school? No, later. I didn't go to the deaf school till hearing. So even mainstream, yeah, they just noticed I was different. I was the only one who had Wardenbergs. And so I didn't really know anybody had very similarities that I could, ask about and get explained a little bit better. Gosh, it was already happening in mainstream school. Wow. And so when I went to the deaf school, there was one other guy who had similar facial features, but they were white. And so they said, yeah, I have Wardenbergs. And I was like, what is that? What is Wardenbergs? And so they explained it to me. And I was like, no, 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 I don't have Wardenbergs. And I was in denial at first because I grew up being bullied because of that facial feature. And now I had a label. And I was like, no, 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 that's not me. That's not me. And so I remember in the beginning, I was very much in denial. And then there were more and more and more people out there that were like me. And so I was not alone. I was not too different. Oh, so it's important to feel that you were not alone and to have that understanding of why. Well, what about you two? I think I was a little fortunate. This is Cassie. I have a deaf cousin, Monique, who's from LA, and I went to the same school with Melissa. Yes, yes, yes. So Monique is deaf. And so when I was born, my mom got me tested and they said, she's deaf, sorry. And she said, my cousin's already deaf. So she was already exposed a little bit. So we were a little fortunate. And then, I was close to my dad's side, who has a lot of Wardenbergs. There's some black, Latina. And so it was very normalized for me. Kayla says this, yeah, you're lucky. Until I went to school at the deaf school and I started to get bullied when I was 5. The bullying started there and I didn't understand it. They called me a skunk and different other words, but the skunk was the most popular one. Oh, yes. But I did notice that I used my skills to redirect from my appearances. For example, I was really good at math, and so I would always beat everybody, and they would be like, ugh. And so I would distract them from my appearances. I would really redirect on my skills to detract from my other features. So then I went to a mainstream school, and it wasn't as bad there. But in middle school, I do have, they would say I have a unibrow, and they mocked me. And they said, "Oh, you look different. You look like more like a woman. What's up?" And I was like, "Oh, I guess I've always looked like a man, so because I started plucking." And so now they said you look like a woman. And so my high school year, oh, it was awful. It was probably the most awful years of my life. So I went to the deaf school growing up for communication access, and I wanted to go back to the deaf school because I wanted to graduate with my classmates. So I went back my senior year at CSDR, and oh my goodness, I would have thought my year would have been the best because everybody's familiar with my syndrome. They know about Wardenbergs. There's like 3 or 4 people that have similar things there, but it was worse. I was being bullied. I don't know. Maybe it was because I was, good with my skills. I was an awesome cheerleader. Oh, that was such a positive. I'm not trying to brag or anything either, but I would use my skills because I worked hard for it. I mean, I was really good. And so at the end of the semester, I was traumatized. At lunchtime, everybody was out at lunch, chatting. At the deaf school, all the tables are together, those round tables, and everybody's chatting. And at the hearing school, there's no visual news. They don't have, like the PA system flashing, but the deaf school they do. And so, they have a video board, and they wanted me to, say something. I forgot what it was, but I was signing something. I was so excited. Everybody was watching me on the news. And so I was so excited. So at lunchtime, I was eating and we were watching. And then I guess I looked funny that day. I don't know, every day. But one girl got up and it was like a Rebecca Lovitch. And I'm sorry, I'm not naming names, but I felt like this person I have to name because it's part of my life. And really, it traumatized my life. And so they stood up and made fun of me. I don't know, like in front of 200 people. And I was heartbroken. Ugh. And to this day, I'm still traumatized, still. And so now I feel like I live subconsciously. And I'm like, okay, I've got to look good. I have to make sure that I look as normal as possible. I have to make sure my hair is curled before I go to work. Yes, yes, I get that. Because I don't want people to say something about my face and my appearance because of that experience. But today I am much, much better, moving along with my life. I'm in my 30s and I'm finally accepting of my life. And so that is my life growing up. Hugs, hugs, hugs. Oh, yes. This is Kayla. That's huge. And I want to share too, my story. Oh, I've got a whole host of them. There are endless stories with my experiences that has made me who I am today. And, often people are like, oh, why do you wear so much makeup? And, because of my upbringing. Because in middle school, my eyes, so white. And so I started to really make sure I had mascara. I put mascara on every day because they were white eyelashes. And, my experience was a little odd because growing up, it's such a hearing family, and there was no exposure with Wardenbergs. There was no like, do you have Wardenbergs? Do you have anything? It was nothing. I was just born. I went to hearing school, public school, and the only thing that felt different was my deafness. The Wardenbergs wasn't so much a part of it. I didn't really have any problems with that except for the deafness. That was the only problem. The hair, I don't know. They treated me like I was normal. I mean, the oppression with the deafness, that was about it. I felt left out. I felt isolated. I was lonely until, I went to Lion Camp and it was so diverse. So I just imagined only about 1 or 2 deaf. I thought, I would be about one or few deaf people on earth. I had no exposure to more deaf people. I was clueless there were more out there. And so I was, upset. I really didn't met any deaf people until I was about 7 or 8. And Mom said that there was Sign Camp, and it was one of my favorite camps in Texas. I think it's still running. But anyway, Sign Camp, it's all deaf people. There's like over 200 kids there. And I had no idea. And so Mom was like, come on, let's go to camp. Let's go to camp. And so I was like, and Niall was there too. Oh, it was great. So many people we, grew up with friends. So Mom was like, come to camp, come to camp. And I was like, no. She was like, there's deaf people like you. And I was like, no, 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 no. And so when we got there, oh my God, it was such a culture shock. I was like, that is my community. That's my access. I mean, I was such in the hearing mindset. My receptive wasn't even that great. But ironically, I was bullied. I mean, I was already grown up lonely in the hearing community, and now so excited in my community, the deaf community, and bullied. But I didn't care. I didn't care. I was like, I still want my deaf community. And so I just bared through it. I wanted to fit in. Some people were nice to me, some people bullied me, and it was good, But the important thing was they were deaf. And so growing up, every camp I went to, summer school, sign camp, I always, every night in bed, I would just go through all those thoughts of what to say the next day. What do I plan? What if I have this conversation with this person? And I already would pre plan this conversation. I did that at such an early age. What if I'm going to be bullied the next day? What if? What if I break down and cry? What if? What if? What if? And what if I just isolate myself, walk away and cry by myself? Through AIM. That's the original cyberbullying, the AIM, AOL, all of that other stuff, that when computers were first invented, all of that instant messaging. And they're like, I'm going to hurt you. I'm going to, kick you if you come to DSD. I'm going to kill you. All of that. I mean, what? All because of Wardenbergs? Yeah, I guess so. But they just targeted me. In other situations, if something got messed up, I was targeted. If I was with staff and I was in trouble, I was targeted. I don't know. Yes, with staff, yes. I don't know. It was very dangerous. Did you feel like that? Oh, yes, yes. I felt like we were very easy targets because it was just easy to see that we looked differently. Yes, we were scapegoats. I just want to summarize one story that was so traumatic in all my life. And, I was very, private. I had everything blocked because there was a lot of hearing people at that time. And also there was that life journalism. And so one of my friends was like, please, do change that private entry. There's a lot of pictures of us. And so one like random one was one person was a hearing person, just random. Because hearing people bully too. And so a hearing person sent me a message and said, one day there's going to be all these pictures of you on that. And they sent me the link, and oh my gosh, people had cropped my pictures and like put me like on a sheet. And I mean, all these different gifts, all these different pictures that were cropped out and put up on animals. And I was like, what? My stomach dropped. And there was one, um, this deaf, this deaf community, just stood behind me. And they just, I mean, there was one person that was really good with English. And I was in seventh grade, so my English wasn't that great. I was still learning, and they just blasted them. The whole deaf community, you know, oppressed me and bullied me, but stood behind me. and blasted them. So it felt good that, and the principal as well, that told me to put this up on privacy. And they were like, you tattled me and you bullied me. And I mean, it was a high school student who told the principal. I mean, it was just like, it was again and again. And then I was bullied from that on that social media platform and on the internet in person. And I had talked to the principal and I was triggered. And there was so much happening there. Wow, gosh, I can't believe that all that was happening and all that targeting and bullying, and it's still happening still. And you guys all had that shared experiencing of, connecting with the deaf people and having that feeling, but they were still targeting you as well, even though you were with your people. Gosh, I'm so sorry you guys all went through that. And you think, that deaf of deaf family have more support and they're more understanding because they grew up in that environment. And I'm sure that the parents may have explained some things. I would have thought, yeah, that they had exposure. I would have thought, but really it was the opposite. They use that as their advantage to be more cool. But yeah, it's awful growing up. But now it's funny on social media with its expanded. It's the best platform to share, about the bullying. One ironic thing is the Wardenbergs community still is very divided. Yes, yes, it's very divided to this day. What do you mean? Well, like, for example, like friends groups are very cliquish. A friends group normally only has one person that has Wardenbergs in a friend group. They don't hang out together. Really? Yeah, it's like a taboo thing. Yeah, yeah, yeah. They're like, oh my God, you're siblings. You guys are cousins. Oh my God. Nah, nah, nah. And it just goes on and on and on. It's like, okay. Yes. They're like, oh, that's your sister. Oh my God, that's your sister. Like, and I have my own personality. I'm different. I'm my own person. And they're like, oh, you look the same. Oh my gosh, you're the same. Yeah, so that's still a struggle today. And I saw one person that has Wardenbergs at Gallaudet because I work at Gallaudet. And they're gorgeous. They're very, assertive, and they've become the face of Gallaudet. And I've tried to talk to them, but I'm a little afraid that they won't really want to talk to me, that they won't really want to be side by side and be together. So there's still a struggle to this day. And I hope this platform will help. Yeah, yeah. I hope this talk will help. To be honest, if it's not for this and this chat and you guys bringing up this idea of bringing the Wardenbergs platform, to be honest with you, the other day was one of the best days of my life, chatting with this and having this discussion. I mean, it was like, wow, I've never had this. Yes, yes, yes. And, it's just awesome to have that space and really, wow, I wanted this for many years. I felt so alone. I mean, I've talked about here and there, but not enough. I really wanted to, really have these really long discussions about it. I want more of that for more Wardenbergs people. And I wanted to educate you guys all and break that stigma of people saying, "Oh my God, you guys are cousins. You guys are this. You guys are that." No, we are our own people. Yeah, that internal oppression. Now that you guys are all grown, some of you guys have your own families. How do people treat you now? Do you still experience being treated differently now? It's better. It's better. I feel like now people know how to act. They know how to act better. They know not to target, you know, not to target because you look different. It's kind of different now. Now it's more of that subtle. Yeah, that's true. Like, for example, I was in one movie project. I was involved with another person who has Wardenbergs. And they're like, oh, you're both in the same scene. Oh, no, 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 we can't have you guys in the same scene. And it's like, what? It's fine. That shouldn't be a problem. And so there's still those comments here and there, but it's definitely better than it was when I was younger. Because, when you're young and you're kids don't know any better. They'll just joke and bully. But now when you get older, I guess people are a little bit more mature. Oh, go ahead. Yeah. Well, often I feel like, even life situations that you address, maybe some problems, that you often take more blame than you should. We're targeted more than we need to be. For some reason, I feel like it can be dangerous. Like, for example, as a person with Wardenbergs and then somebody else that doesn't have Wardenbergs, if we're side by side and we do something wrong, we do the same thing wrong, I feel like we would get punished more. Do you guys feel that way? Yes, yes. Okay, so I'm not alone. I feel like, well, for example, like if I have friends, they're jealous or like they threatened by me. I don't know. I just feel like we've had to grow up very strong, a little bit wiser, a little bit more experienced, a little bit more confident from our own experience. Thick skinned, yeah, thick skinned, right. And so often people who have not gone through as much as we have will, I don't know, feel jealous or feel threatened. I don't know, I guess it's some competition. Well, I think, that we are just more knowledgeable. Like we have it in the back of our head that we have to behave. At the same time, we demand respect. And so it's a two-way thing. Yeah, that's how I feel. And so suppose, like in a work environment, you can't really, talk about our identity, but they do see it. They see a difference. Yeah, yeah. Or maybe if I'm far away, if I'm having a conversation from far away, and they say, yeah, that Wardenbergs girl, that Wardenbergs girl. Yeah, 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 that happens. They're like, yeah, yeah, oh, yeah, that deaf description, yeah, that deaf being. I mean, and that's okay. I would rather that than, I don't know, when say, no, they look different. So, I don't know, still we have that subconscious that we are identified differently. And so we have to watch how we behave. We have to watch how we look. I have to look nice all the time to, I don't know, counteract society. Like, for example, I have to have makeup. I have to look more normal. I have to look more like other people. Right. And that's why I dye my eyebrows. Yeah, I dye my eyebrows. And I dye my hair too. Oh, you dye your hair, Jesse? I feel like often people will come up to me and they're like, oh my gosh, you leave your hair white. I wish my friends could do that. I wish my friends with Wardenbergs can do that. And I think, well, often what my response is, respect them. I get it. I get it. It's their journey. If they want to dye it, let them. Let them. It's their decision. I don't blame them. I used to dye it myself. I still do. I dye my eyebrows. Because if I don't do my eyebrows, they are completely white. Yeah, mine are so white too. I don't know. Someday maybe I'll leave them white, and maybe I don't know. Maybe I'll dye them some neon pink. I wouldn't mind that. But yeah, when people look at me, I want it to be obvious. I just don't want to be oppressed. I want my friend to be like, well, why don't you do this, or why don't you stop dying? Why don't you be natural? They don't know what it's like to have Wardenbergs. And not only that, but some and a few people, whew, they say, why don't you dye all your hair? And I'm like, shut up. You know what? Let me be. It's funny. One question that comes up a lot is a lot of people think that I'm Kayla. Aww. And I'm like, no, 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 I'm not Kayla. Oh, you don't mind though, right? You don't mind though. Like on TikTok, they'll scroll through and they're like, oh, it's Kayla. And I'm like, no, 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 I wish. I'm not Kayla. Oh. A lot of people, say great stuff about Cassie. People are like, oh, I know Cassie. And they speak very highly of you. Yeah, yeah. Hmm. A lot of people assume they're like, "Oh, I know your family," and I'm like, "Oh, you do? Oh, but you assume, or they assume we're family, you know." And so they just make a lot of assumptions. Make a lot of assumptions. When I was younger, I really hated it, but now I've gotten a lot used to it, and I don't know. As we get older, I become more accepting. At a deaf expo or a deaf event, ugh, I hate them because they hug and they hug so tightly. They like I'm a stranger, and they're like, oh, I'm class of 1968. I know you, and I'm like, do I look old? What? Do I look that old? Yes, yes, yes. And I'm like, just because I got white, what? I'm not that old. And so, people come up to me and I'm like, no, 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 no. And so I know I feel bad, but they're hugging the wrong person. And then they're like, oh, oh. And I just feel so bad. But they take all my energy. One of the worst experiences in my life was when I went to Rochester. I went to RIT, and I got in and I took that long trip from DC to RIT. I don't know, it was like a 6 hour trip. So I got there like at 1 a.m. and people were still partying on campus. And I went, and there was this huge guy, big, huge guy. He came up to me, and he said the wrong name. He was like, "I know you," and I was like, "No." And he wanted to start something. We got into it, and I was like, "No, I don't know you." And I was like, and my friend who could talk, oh, and they were ready to hit me. They were ready to fight. What? Yes, yes, they were ready to fight, and I was scared. And I was like, oh my gosh. So we backed up, and there was a bunch of them. And then we had a crowd that, just because they thought I was just like giving them some made up name. And I was like, no, my name's Kayla. And they're like, no, it's not. No, it's not. Uh, I don't know. And so, I mean, I could have gotten hurt in that situation. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Yeah. So, one thing was that, I remember my first time meeting somebody else that had Wardenbergs outside of my family. The kids, we never think about anything until we see somebody outside of our family that looks like us. And I don't know if you guys remember, your first time meeting somebody or and meeting your role models. Oh, yes, 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 yes. Well, when I met them, we had such an instant connection. I was in third grade and they were in high school. And, I was obsessed with them. They were such a great support. They wanted to know if I needed anything. They would give me anything. They felt like such family. And then later on, that kind of dissolved. And I would see other people with Wardenbergs, and they would just kind of look at me and go about their way. And so that was really the only experience I had. I just knew that it wasn't normal. And I was like, oh, I need to be very discreet about my Wardenbergs. But, we hope to improve that moving forward. Yes, yes, we need that. We don't realize that we need that healing space to be able to support each other. We don't realize that. You know, Having Wardenbergs, it can be such a lonely place. And, I don't mean to compare to the BIPOC community, but, BIPOC has that support. But with Wardenbergs, there's none of that support. And to be honest with you, I admit in middle school, well, no, 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 going back. The first story was how I finally found out was, sign camp. There was one staff that had white hair all over, and they came up and said, "Oh, you have Wardenbergs just like me." And I was like, "Oh, oh." And so I was, and I met their daughter. They had Wardenbergs as well, and they were educating me about it. Their name was Amanda Charitz, and their mom's, I'm sorry, Ortiz. And, they said, yeah, I put mascara on just like you at very such a young age, 10, 11 years old, I wore mascara. And so that's how I found out about Wardenbergs. And then later on in middle school, yeah, I used to, get those A messages, from the East Coast, Maryland School for the Deaf, of course. And, those girls in TSD would get all those messages. And one girl was bullying so badly at Maryland School for the Deaf, and she reached out to me wanting to be friends. And I was like, no, get away. Because I was already being bullied. And so now, wanting to be friends, I was embarrassed. And then from there, growing up, I was very ashamed. And I did not want to be friends with anybody that had Wardenbergs. And then if people came up to me in high school, I just, I Gallaudet, the same thing. I was like, get away. But now, looking back, I'm like, wow, I was insecure. Yeah, it's that impression. You had your own internalized impression. But now I love those who have Waardenburg syndrome. I love it. Yes, yes. When I went to the deaf school, that's where I got explained that I had Mordenbergs. I was in denial at first, and I had to really like look into what is Wardenbergs because back at that time there wasn't Google, and so I wasn't really sure how to research it. Where do I find more information on this? And, all, those comments were all I knew about it. And I was like, no, no, I don't have that. And then later on through life, I was in high school. We had computers. I was able to research a little bit more information. And I looked into it. I was like, oh, okay, so they were right. They weren't making it up. And, they had it too. And so I wasn't alone. There were some others that had it. And so I was like, okay. Um, and so I had to really like retrain my thoughts because growing up, I was always wanting to fit in. I always wanted to be like everybody else. I didn't want to be different. You know, a lot of kids don't want to be different. They wanted to be like everybody. They wanted to follow everybody. And so I had to really shift my thinking. And that was fine. I could be different. And we don't have to be the same, and it's great to be different. And now it's okay. But yeah, you really had to have that mental shift. Society really takes over your mind. Well, I know the three of you guys in different capacities through different reasons, and I have always admired the three of you. Always. Your energy, your passion for what it is that you guys do. And I admit, I never thought of your experiences with Wardenbergs impacting on who you guys are now. I just never thought of that. Kayla and Cassie mentioned feeling more pressure to have to wear makeup and look good to fit in with society. I never thought about that. So, just wow, this really gives a new perspective on the three of you. And yes, I know, being through different experiences make you stronger, it gives you thicker skin, but still, it sucks that the three of you guys had to go through that. And I really do hope that this conversation you guys have today have opened that path for more discussions with the community and they can be more aware, and also for within your community as well, those that have Wardenbergs, that sense of connection. One last question I want to ask you guys. Oh, you want to add one thing? Now, I don't want to, take away from our Wardenbergs community. We all go through our own different journeys. This can be a lonely journey, or it can be very fortunate to have a family support system. There can be two different paths. And everyone goes through different things, different feelings and emotions. I don't want to take away from that. My experiences are mine, and if I see another person that has Wardenbergs that come up with me, I'll be thrilled to spread more awareness and I could support and how to help heal. I just recently got two DMs and it was just these letters and they were so heart touching. A lot of people are so traumatized, and so I do look forward to healing our community. So thank you, Melissa, for giving us this platform. Really, this is the most vulnerable I've ever been. Well, thank you. Thank you for being vulnerable. Honest, I honor you guys so much, and I'm so admired. I hope some young kids are watching this, young kids that have Wardenbergs. Now, one just last word of advice for the three of you guys, and maybe, or what advice do you guys have for young kids watching? This is Kayla. Gosh, I have so many things to say. And this is Cassie. Fake it till you make it, like Rihanna sings, fake it till you make it. I always joke, about my appearances to detract. Sometimes I don't know what to do myself, but finally I accept who I am. I finally accepted in my 20s. Yeah. I'm always here. And this is Kayla. It just feels like now, with Wardenbergs as a kid, gosh, it was hell. It was hell. But now in my 30s, I'm so happy that I have Wardenbergs. And I'm so happy that I went through these experiences because those have really made me who I am. I used to be angry. I didn't know why I had to go through this. And I was so angry. I mean, I was a very angry person for a long time to the point where I always went, boxing. But, my advice for younger kids, just hang in there. You'll love yourself eventually. You will. Yes, yes. And this is Jessie. I just want to add one piece of advice. Why be a copy of somebody else when you're born to stand out? Different is good, different is beautiful. There are different kinds of people with different types of conditions, of appearances, of heights, hair colors, weights, whatever. We are all beautiful, period. All beautiful. Yes, yes. And last thing I want to add, to be honest with you, growing up, I really struggled. I wanted to be like everybody else. But, my hair's different. But, I still am addicted to be different. I like to be loud. I like to, dress loudly. I want to stand out. I wear different shoes. I try to be bold and continue to be bold and expand on that, expand on those differences. Yes, yes, yes. That's it. Embrace it. Embrace it. Yes. The three of you guys are so beautiful people inside and outside. I know many people who are watching can really benefit from this and from your experiences, from your words of wisdom. Yes, I'm looking forward to more connections through the three of you guys, and hopefully more people out there will connect as well. And yeah, there'll just be more collaboration community. Thank you, thank you, thank you guys all. And yeah, young guys out there, reach out to me. We're here to support you guys through your journey. Great, thanks, thanks. Love you guys. Bye, bye. Love you, love you. Bye bye.